There we go. Welcome to the Fireside Chat to prepare for the Great Depression and the New Deal. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to talk about here. Maybe I'll just look at my fireplace. Oh, yeah. Well, if you have specific questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to start from the top and just go down from there. About the Dust Bowl. That came with the house. Oh, no. All right, hang on. I'm going to get some more water, and then I'll get my Minnesota mug going, and then I'll talk to you people. Wow. Nice. Okay, well, the first thing you got to know are the causes of the Great Depression. We split them up into three categories. They were long-term, immediate, and then failed responses that led to more problems that made the Great Depression become just so great. So I'll start with the long-term ones. We didn't do a whole lot with the 1920s and like what was going on during the 1920s, but we did do the stock market game. So if you remember some of the important industries from the 1920s, that would be helpful. But those are things like consumer industries like the radio and cars and telephones and new technology and communication. And then also, obviously, banks were important. They'll become more important when you get to the more immediate cause of the Great Depression. And then also, I think some other good ones. Oil makes the economy go round. So that would be an important one. But just kind of those general things about the economy during the 1920s, which if you remember some of the businesses from the game, you'll be fine. To answer Amaya's question specifically, you got to know that the Dust Bowl hurt a lot of farmers, which caused depressed farm prices, which then caused farmers to lose their farms. And then that caused a lot of banks in the rural areas to go out of business. And that was just kind of like a sign of worse things to come. That's really it, though. You don't need to know like the science of like how dust bowls occur, or the plague of locusts that could be seen from outer space, or things like that. But going off of that, I guess. So World War I is obviously like, I know I kind of talked about it as like a failed response, but that was more to discuss how there was a like global recession that was going on during the time, and that the US didn't really do a whole lot to help themselves by trying to limit foreign trade. That actually made things worse with the Smoot-Hawley tariff. But World War I is a long-term cause of the Great Depression, because all these other countries are in recession as well. But sorry, somebody's sneaking in and trying to watch. I'll support New Deal programs now. Who is Turtle Banana? How about you identify yourself and I'll answer some of your questions? All right, yeah, I'll get to all those in a second. But anyway, so that was one of the long-term causes, was World War I. And then the other thing is that World War I created a lot of demand in a lot of different industries that didn't stick around after. Oh, wow, yeah. A lot of demand in industries like farming and consumables and lumber and metal and steel that didn't keep going following the Great Depression, following World War I. So that was another reason, was that people were producing a lot, and then just kind of naturally after a war, that demand goes down, and that's when you get into that like cyclical recession that we talked about. So that was just something that you can't really control the business cycle. You can try to make the recessions better. You could try to make them worse if you want to. try to make the recessions worse or better than they necessarily would naturally be, but there's always going to be cyclical recession. So the Great Depression was kind of this like perfect storm of cyclical factors, and then the stock market collapse, and then the bank failures, and then the government raising interest rates and cutting the money supply when they probably should have expanded the money supply and lowered interest rates, and then obviously all the farmers having issues as well. So I mean, there's not going to be a question where like you have to summarize like all of the causes of the Great Depression, but you should know some of the, like what was long-term, what was immediate, what was a failed response. You should know that like the economy in the 1920s with a lot of people buying things on credit, speculating on the stock market, buying stocks on margin, that banks weren't very regulated, that overall the economy wasn't really regulated, that was happening during the 1920s. But you don't need to know a whole lot about like the ins and outs of dust bowls and things like that. So we've got what are the most important New Deal programs to know? I would say the ones that are still around today would be the ones that I would want you to know, so that when your young adopted son David or your young adopted daughter Carly comes to you like 20 years from now and wants to know about the New Deal, that you can tell them about those things and why they impact today. So things like Social Security, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, which was part of Glass-Steagall, which insures your bank money up to $250,000 now. It was $5,000 at the time. Things like the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, because it still regulates the stock market, tries to make sure that there isn't too much speculative investing, but many would argue that they don't pay enough attention, but that's neither here nor there. Social Security, and then I think just the fact that the government provides welfare or direct aid to people, that's not a specific program, but Social Security was part of that. And FERA, the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, was part of that. And today there's a lot of government organizations that try to help with natural disasters and emergency medical situations. Like, I mean, coronavirus, for example, like why does the government get involved in trying to deal with a pandemic or an epidemic? Well, part of that's because it's not directly correlated, but during the New Deal, the government decided that it was going to be involved in a lot of these types of things. That one was off the top of my head, so I hope you appreciate that. And then just the fact that we have a lot of business regulations now that started during the New Deal, like minimum wage, so that's part of the Fair Labor Standards Act. The National Labor Relations Act allowed workers to unionize, private workers at least to unionize, which is still a big deal today, even though it's not really in Idaho, though I was driving my car and heard a nice ad for unionization. So there you go. So those, and those are the ones that I would say you should know. But I mean, like we broke it up, and this is like a common like history teacher thing to do. But you talk about things in terms of relief, recovery, and reform. So knowing like one or two from each of those would be good. Yeah. I mean, I think that's it. I don't have like a matching section where it's like you need to know the definition of like 15 different ones. It's going to be a lot of like, you know, I might give you like a source about Social Security or something like that and ask you to tell me a little bit about like what it did and how it helped solve the issues and that kind of thing. Things that are a little more nebulous, like the Agricultural Adjustment Act, won't show up too much. I think that's kind of interesting. It was declared unconstitutional. It's kind of unethical, but that's not going to be like a focal point. The other question that somebody had was, what RE should I know? What R? Is that what supposed to say? New Deal liberal and conservative views. So the New Deal in itself is a pretty liberal economic program. So the fact that the government's becoming way more involved in the economy, regulating the economy, directly helping people that are economically struggling. Oh, there's Mitchell Carley. Wow, special guest friends, you can say hello. Anyway, so the New Deal itself was a more liberal economic program. We did talk about the differences between liberals and conservatives in terms of social issues, change, and economic issues, but we're really going to be focusing on economic issues because the New Deal was all about government involvement in the economy. So liberals in general would like the New Deal, but there were liberals like Huey Long was the specific one that we looked at that really felt like the New Deal didn't go far enough in helping people, and it was kind of a Band-Aid on the problem, and it should have been doing more to try to fix the economic system in America, maybe make it more socialistic is kind of, if you're familiar with socialism, but just using the government to redistribute wealth to people. He wanted everybody to have at least $2,500 and nobody to have more than $1 million, and to regulate the amount of wealth people could have. And he wanted to give Social Security payments, and he wanted to give free college to everybody. Might sound a little bit familiar if you're politically astute, but that was kind of like a liberal critique that didn't go far enough. It was just a band-aid on the problem. It was going to get us through the Depression, but then everything, our system of corporate capitalism, was going to be pretty much the same when we got done with it. So that's that one. And then conservatives, I mean, they're all about the government staying out of the economy, and they kind of like the way that things were going during, sorry, just looking at people. They liked the way things were going in the 1920s. A lot of them benefited from the stock market crash, just like David Ballard or Dan Weller or any of those people that invested in Durant Motors during our stock market game. So they made money. They didn't like all the regulations on business, like minimum wage, letting workers unionize, or supporting their right to unionize. What else? Having to pay taxes towards Social Security, 40-hour work weeks. So there's a lot of things, the SEC coming in and regulating the stock market. So there's a lot of things that conservatives didn't like. They felt like it was government overreach. And when we looked at the American Liberty League, that document, there was a number of things that they talked about that wasn't just government involvement, but they also felt like it was invading people's constitutional rights. They felt like it was too much government involvement in business, obviously, but they also felt like the president was getting too much power, and a lot of people started to feel like President Roosevelt was a dictator during this time period. And that continues into World War II as well, because remember, he had 4 terms. So we're going to talk about World War II next, but there's a lot of issues with presidential power during wartime. Yeah, who is that person? Who's player 1? You should welcome. Yeah, I mean, that's I don't really have a whole lot more to tell you, to be honest. I mean, there's gonna be sources that you have multiple choice with. There's gonna be some regular multiple choice. There's going to be and there's gonna be a source analysis where you're gonna have to do some short answer, but I can't go too in depth with that. But it's gonna be a similar type of thing that we always do, like main idea, supporting details, perspective, origin and purpose, those kinds of things. No, it's not. You leave them alone. They're fully prepared. They just have to study. Yeah, that's a good question. I would say, like, yeah, the quiz, it's going to be the length is the difference. Top terms. Anyway, top terms. So in the Gamma Green packet, right, this is on the first 2 objectives, so the first topic, and in like parenthesis right next to the objective, I put down the terms that you need to know. So I don't have it with me right now, but I would say something like, obviously you need to know what the New Deal is. You need to know what speculation was on the stock market. You need to know what buying on margin is. You need to know what cyclical recession means. You should know, obviously, what the Great Depression was. You should know what the Dust Bowl was in terms, at least, how it affected farmers. New Deal, relief, recovery, reform are not necessarily terms, but you should know like a program that fits into each one of those categories. So just broadly, kind of like relief means give people direct help that are struggling with the Great Depression. Recovery means help the economy get back on its feet and get out of the Depression. Then reform is changing systems to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's about, so I don't have like specific, oh yeah, liberal, obviously liberal and conservative, like critiques, like what does it mean to be economically liberal, economically conservative? Thank you, Spencer. I like it too. It came with the house though, so I can't take credit for it. We did paint this thing though. It was like a darker gray. Yusuf, you're gonna be fine. Are we to know about the effects of the Great Depression? Yes. But I mean, like, there's nothing like beyond the obvious. So like I can't tell what color. Well, I picked out the color, but it probably looks different to me than just you. Okay. Anyway, so effects of the Great Depression, like I'm talking about like impact. So like 25% unemployment rate. Talking about the New Deal itself is an impact. Bank failures, like half the banks in the country going out of business. The fact that like farmers losing their farmland, industrial production going way down, the political division that was caused between people that were for the New Deal and against the New Deal, the fact that there's a lot of kind of liberal Democrats that came together around the New Deal, and that it's this thing called the New Deal Coalition, which lasts for a long time, like into the 80s. But just that you had this division between liberal and conservatives, but also people that were together. Will there be any? Yeah, unemployment would be an effect. Good work, Spencer. That is true. Cool. Will there be any political cartoons? There might be. Wink. But it'll be something related to a multiple choice, and hopefully it'll be something that's pretty obvious. And if it's not, then we'll put something together for it. So do we need to know short-term, long-term, or is there more other than the events like the Josiah, you're gonna be fine. Yeah, so Yusuf, you're a little late, but yeah, you have to do the short-term, long-term, and then like some of the failed responses. So just in general, like I said this a little bit earlier, but I'm not gonna like make you write me a paragraph about like how the Great Depression transpired, but just a couple of the different causes and how they break down. Will be short answer. There will be short answer, which would be similar to ones that you've seen before. It's going to be related to a source, a primary source. So I'll ask you things like, what is the main idea, origin, purpose, those kinds of things. Same old. Bring in an outside piece of evidence to explain it, like a cause or an effect. It's not going to be wildly different than anything else you've seen. Yeah, so this is what I'll do. I want to do like 3 more minutes, but I feel like I've said everything I really like wanted to say. So if you don't have anything specific, then I'm gonna kind of just take off. Now, okay, origin is what's the perspective, which is either in this case they're gonna be like their perspective is probably gonna be liberal or conservative, pro New Deal or anti New Deal, or they're going to have something, maybe it might be like a perspective on the Great Depression, like they might think it was caused by this or it was caused by that, or the government should do this or the government should do that, something like that. Okay. The other thing with origin is historical context. So just looking at what was the time period and what was going on during that time. And it's just like, what should we take into account about that? So if it's 1933, like that fireside chat that we did together, that was during the beginning of the Great Depression. So we don't know all the effects of the New Deal yet. That's something we just need to remember if we're thinking about the effects of the New Deal and reading that document. Purpose is just looking at, are they trying to inform, persuade, or entertain? Spoiler alert, 90% of the time they're trying to persuade you. You just got to figure out, what are they trying to persuade you of? How do you know that? Bruh. Origin stuff. I think there should be a she tried to look in a little bit earlier. Do you have to know any programs of the New Deal? Yeah, so I'm gonna post this when I'm done, because I don't want to talk about stuff that I've like a ton of stuff, and it's not your fault. It's just that you're a little bit late. But yeah, you need to know some of the programs. Like we asked about, like, what do you think your top 3 are? Like, you should at least know like 3 of them, especially ones that are around today. And early on, if you go back to the beginning, I was talking about some that are still around today. Bruh. Sweet people. Well, you got 45 seconds, and then I think I'm gonna sign off. Do we need to explain everything about the programs? I mean, you should know what it did and like why it was important and how it tried to help the Depression. And again, those like 3 categories: relief, recovery, and reform. If you know which ones those were, or how they try to do those things, that would be good. Documentary. When can we get our do it for. I don't. Whenever Derek makes those, I don't know. I don't know what that means. Do you want to wave at them? They really want you to. Do we need to know why the new deal is considered? Yes, you do, Spencer. This is Dr. Schmitz-Carly. There she is. Okay, she's leaving now. Oh gosh. Like you got two members of my family here. You got my wife, and then you've got my brother is on the chat right now. This is like, man, this is something. It took me 9 years to get here, but here we are. Yeah, careful with the comments that you make. I'll just say that. Schmitz. Okay. Yeah, so that's about all I got. Spencer, it was considered liberal because it was more government involvement in the economy. So the government's stepping in, trying to help the economy. That's a liberal position. They want more government involvement in the economy. So it was a liberal program. All right. So I think that's it. The 10th episode of the 10th episode of The Outsiders on tonight, and that's the end of it. And I read the book last year, so I got to finish it off. So, 2 immediate causes of the Great Depression: stock market crash, bank failures. That's it. You remember those two, Spencer? You'll be golden. You'll be golden for basically everything, like even the Great Recession. You can talk to your parents about that. All right, people. I'll post this, I guess, when I'm done, and it'll live in infamy forever. So, peace out. Should we only know liberal versus conservative? Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know. Liberal, conservative. FDIC is a good program to know, Spencer. Yes. Spencer, you got anything else? Write to me on Teams. I'm going to sign off on here. All right. Good night and good luck, friends.